Welcome all to this tutorial. Today I will go ahead and begin the crash course on C++. Keep in mind that we will mainly learn things that will be of use to us in order to create a keylogger. But before we can get into the creation of the keylogger, we have to go through some basic things so that you would actually understand the code that you see before yourselves. I will give you fairly good explanations of what I am doing here and of some basic terms that you will need, and then later on, as we keep on progressing through the creation of the keylogger, you will learn more and more and more and more until eventually you pretty much figure it all out. Now let's go ahead and begin, shall we? Last time you saw a program Hello World run. It printed out something onto the screen. Now let's see. Let's go ahead and try to understand it. So first of all, you have this include statement here, and it says basically IOStream. With include, you are including libraries and other things. So libraries and other things. I know how it sounds, but believe me, that is all you need to know for the time being. Basically, the contents of this file just comes in front of the main function and it's taken into consideration by the program. Why do we need this? Well, so that we can write cout. We wouldn't be able to write cout without IOStream. Also, // is a comment line. So it just means that that particular line will not be taken into the consideration by the system. That's just something that we use as reference for ourselves and for other people who read through the code. You can also use multi-line comments like this. Just write in /* and then at the end write in */ and that entire section will be taken out of the consideration by the machine. Over here you see it immediately says that it immediately gives you a red underline of cout. It doesn't recognize it because we have commented out this library. So let's go ahead and delete this and cout is perfectly fine and dandy now, except it's missing a few things that we will type in now. So type in less than sign, type in hey, it is 4 it's 4 o'clock at my place now and I am awake. If we just go ahead and press enter, oh no, we need a semicolon to terminate and return 0 to pretty much finish the program. Go ahead and press Ctrl F11 to run it, and there we go. It says, hey, it is 4 o'clock at my place and it is 4 o'clock at my place now and I am awake. So we've successfully managed to print this onto the screen. Now we can go ahead and play around with it a little bit. You can type in and L to insert a new line, but you need lesser than, and we can also do this. The simple fact that we've pressed enter here does not mean that we're going into the new line. This is just purely for aesthetic purposes. For us, it makes no difference whatsoever to the machine until we actually tell it it's a new line with and L. And now we can go ahead and type in less than and type in another sentence. Why am I awake now? Okay, so that's it. Control F11. Going through. There we go. It says you have the initial sentence, which is here, and then you have and L, and then you have this. Just to make a point here, if I delete and L, or if I just type in or if I just commented out, I can do this. Oops, going through, and you see now it's a single line. It makes no difference of whatsoever that we've placed this section in a different line here until we actually tell the program. Okay, so that would be cout. That's how you print something out. Now if you want to insert something into the system, if you want to input something, not insert, like if you want to input something, you would use cin. But before we can actually go into cin, let's just talk about a concept which is common to all programming languages, which is variables. Variables are memory locations allocated in RAM. They're used in order to store data. Basically, you have a lot of variables in C, a lot of variable types. Let's put it so. That's the correct way of putting it. You have int, float, double. There are others like string or char, and so on and so forth. We're gonna get to those, no worries there, but for the time being, let's deal with ints. So integers basically just whole numbers, meaning 1 2 3 4 5 1000 10 billion and 5 11, something like that. So those would be integers. Let's create an integer. So int a equals 10 semicolon, and I could have also done this, comma, b equals 20. All these spaces, they're just purely for aesthetic reasons. They are not needed by the program, by the machine. You also have another variable type, which is a double. Those are numbers with decimal points. So if I type in c equals 10.3, if I type in d equals 60.234, those would be doubles. Next up, if I type in cout, now pay close attention here, cout, enter the values for A and B, and we're gonna give it endl. We'll type in cin, greater than sign, keep that in mind, A, B, semicolon, and then we shall type in cout, values of A and B, let's go about it this way. Value of A colon space, and then we're gonna do less than endl, because we would like a new line, and then we'll do again less than value of B, and we need to do this. So value of A is A, and value of B is basically B, endl. Well, we don't really need it here, so I'll just go ahead and put it like this, semicolon, and let's go ahead and run the program. Error exists in the required project. Now, this is how, well, aside from just knowing that it's an error, when it tells you that it's an error, you go and take a look at the code, and you go and take a look at the lines close to the one where you have a red X mark. So let's see what sort of a mistake did we make here. So first off, can you spot it? Just take a look. It's in this line for sure. It doesn't always necessarily need to be. It can be in the preceding lines or in the lines that come afterwards. But take a look. In cout, instead of using less than, we've used greater than. So just change that, and it should run now. So enter the values for A and B. Let's go ahead and type in 50 and then type in, I don't know, 30, value of A is 50, value of B is 30. Excellent. And you see, even though we have assigned values, we've reassigned them. We've reassigned them with user input. So the user has placed some different values here. We can also change this to be a bit prettier. You can say enter the value of A, and then just do this. And after you have entered the value of A, you can actually, we will delete this one, put a colon here, and type in. Okay, so cout greater than, enter the value of B, and do this. Well, this is gonna, yeah, we will need endl. And L, I will explain in a moment. C in A, and now we need to enter B. So C in B. Let's run the program to see if everything works well. Excellent. So it says enter the value of A, but since we placed endl, it's going to go to the new line here. Maybe that wasn't the brightest of ideas, but okay. And enter the value of B, which is going to be, I don't know, 80. Okay, so it says value of A is 10, value of B is 80. So we made a slight slip up in aesthetics here. We can feel free to remove that part and have a prettier output. Come on. So value of A will be 1, value of B will be 2, and there you go. Anyway, what did we do here? We wrote cout to print something out to the screen, so console out and cin console in, and we've printed out onto the screen, enter the value of A. And since we didn't actually type in any new lines or anything like that here, the next position to enter anything would be simply straight after the text. You saw the output when I typed in endl. You had to type in the value below the text. Next up, you have cin, which is console in, to input the value of A. You are asking the user to input, and the program is standing by for the user to input the value. Down below, again, we've printed out enter the value of B, and it's just, there are no new lines or anything of a kind. So it's waiting for the input of the user again with cin. Once both values have been entered, we are able to print out value of A is A and value of B is basically B. So once we put, if something is in the quotation marks like this, we are just printing that out to the screen. No big deal there. But if we just put a variable like this, the value of that the value that is stored in that variable will be printed out. So the value that is stored in A at this point of time, in the code, is whatever the user inputs. Before the user input, it's 10. Because we have assigned 10, and then the user has actually reassigned something else to the value A. We didn't need to write 10 here or anything of a kind. We could have just left it like this and like this. Some garbage would be stored into A and B because something always has to be within those variables. Anyway, that would be user input with cin and user output and standard output with cout. We can go ahead and, well, we don't necessarily need to delete them, but we will, because we should recycle the code as much as we can. So use the code that we've already typed in somewhere in order to save time. But oh well, you gotta miss out on something. Now next up, we have math operators. So what math operators do you have in the real world? Basically, same thing here. You have plus, you have minus, you have division, have multiplication, And you also have a modulus. If you don't know what modulus is, it's basically when you divide two numbers and whatever remains, that's the modulus. For example, if you divided number 5 with number 2, the result would be basically 2 with a remainder of 1. That's one way of looking at it. That remainder 1, that would be the modulus, basically. Anyway, we will use these shortly, but other than that, we also have the comparison operators. So the comparison operators are equal, which means that we can put it like this: A is equal to B. We can use a conditional statement if. I'll talk about that shortly, but I just want to do this first. So A equals B, which means A equal B. If I just typed in one equation, one equal sign, A equals B, all I would do with this, quite literally, is assign the value of B to A, and that's it. Huge mistake usually made by pretty much everybody. People who have been programming for 20 years, they still make these sort of mistakes because they literally have to stare at millions of lines of code. So it's a common error, don't worry about it. Next up, we have exclamation mark equals, which means A is not equal to B. You can type in greater than. A is greater than B. A is less than B. And that's pretty much it. You also have things like and, which basically stands for the word and. So if you have, for example, A, and then you type in and then B, and these can be some sort of conditions. So A is not equal to C, and B is equal to A. This would basically state that this and this. If you have, for example, pipe, it would mean this or this. So or. So some very simple things there. You can use them in if statements, which are conditional statements. Basically, it would go like this. Oops, the caps lock is on. If A is equal to B and C is not equal to D, then I would like you to, I don't know, see out I will not sleep. I will not sleep. Okay. And if this else, if that is not so, I would like to see out I will fight against sleep. Okay, we need a semicolon here, and we need a semicolon here. So, do you see the logic of this? Basically, I'm stating if this condition evaluates to true, and it will only evaluate the true if A is equal to B and C is not equal to D, this will be printed out and this will be disregarded. However, if this evaluates to false, so if either of these two conditions are not true, so if A is different from B, so if A is, let's say, 10 and B is 20, then you're going to go ahead and execute this part of the code and disregard this part. We could have also placed the or, logical or, here. So this would mean that only one of these two conditions would have to be true in order for this portion of the code to run. But I'll show you an example of this in the follow-up tutorial